History remembers beginnings, the first fire, the first tools, the first cities. But history rarely warns us about what comes after. In the last episode, we stood among the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, a structure so old it shouldn't exist, built before cities, built before writing, built before what we call civilization. It forced a question that still lingers. What if humanity was more advanced, much earlier than we thought? What if the story didn't start where our textbooks say it did? But here's the deeper question. Even if civilization began earlier, even if Mesopotamia wasn't the true beginning, there is a moment when something irreversible happened, a shift, a mutation in human behavior. Because building cities is one thing, controlling them is another, and eventually, someone looked at the first great cities of Mesopotamia and asked a dangerous question: what if they were all mine? That question would change history forever. For thousands of years, power was local. A strong leader ruled a single city. A tribe defended its own land. Conflict existed, but it was limited, bounded, contained by geography. But around 2300 BCE, a man emerged who refused to accept limits. His name was Sargon of Akkad, and unlike the rulers before him, he did not just want to govern, he wanted to dominate. The world Sargon was born into was fractured. Southern Mesopotamia was a patchwork of independent city-states, each with its own ruler, its own gods, its own pride. They traded with one another, fought with one another, formed temporary alliances, but none had ever unified the region for long. Power was temporary, victory was short-lived, until Sargon changed the scale. Legend says he was not born into royalty. Some stories claim he was set adrift as a child, raised far from power, an outsider. If true, that makes what followed even more extraordinary. He rose through the ranks, seized control, and then did something no one had successfully done before. He marched beyond his own city, not to raid, not to intimidate, but to conquer permanently. One by one, powerful cities fell: Uruk, Ur-Lagash. But Sargon did not destroy them into dust. He absorbed them. He left them standing. He installed loyal governors. He stationed troops. He created something entirely new: the Akkadian Empire, the first true empire in recorded history. This was not just territorial expansion. It was a psychological revolution. For the first time, tens of thousands of people were ruled by a man they would never meet. Authority became distant, abstract, systematic. Loyalty shifted from city to empire, from local ruler to supreme king. And to maintain that loyalty, Sargon understood something critical. Fear travels farther than friendship. He built a standing army, not temporary warriors, professional soldiers, permanent instruments of control. This was new. War was no longer seasonal. It became policy. But Sargon didn't rule through fear alone. He understood narrative. He declared himself chosen, favored by the gods, protector of order. He crafted legitimacy as carefully as he crafted conquest. Because the larger a territory becomes, the more fragile it is. Distance breeds rebellion. Difference breeds resistance. To hold an empire together, you need more than force. You need belief. Under imperial rule, trade expanded. Roads became safer. Communication stretched farther than ever before. Ideas traveled across vast distances. Ironically, conquest connected humanity. Regions that once existed in isolation now operated within a shared system. Empire accelerated civilization, but it also concentrated power. Wealth flowed toward the center. Resources were extracted. Labor was demanded. Rebellion was crushed. And for the first time, inequality operated at massive scale. Imagine living in one of the conquered cities. You wake up under a ruler who speaks a different dialect. Your taxes no longer support your local temple alone. They support a distant king. Your sons may be conscripted into campaigns hundreds of miles away. You are no longer just a citizen. You are a subject. That word enters human experience here. Subject. Not participant, not equal, subject, and yet the empire thrived. For a time, it stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. Sargon boasted that he ruled the four corners of the world. The phrase echoes through history, because every empire after him would say the same thing. The ambition had been unlocked. Humanity had discovered a new structure for organizing power, and once discovered, it could not be forgotten. But empires carry a hidden weakness. They rely on constant pressure, constant control, constant expansion. When Sargon died, that pressure began to fracture. Rebellions ignited. External forces tested the borders. Environmental strain may have weakened agriculture. Within a few generations, the Akkadian Empire collapsed. The first great empire in history fell. But here's what matters. The idea survived. After Sargon, other rulers studied the blueprint: centralized authority, standing armies, provincial governors, unified administration. The pattern repeats again and again, from Assyria to Babylon to Persia to Rome. Different names, same structure. The first empire did not last forever, but it proved something terrifying. Human beings can be governed at massive scale, through distance, through fear, through story, and we never stopped building them. Today, we don't call most systems empires, but billions live under centralized governments they will never personally encounter. We obey laws written by distant authorities. We pay taxes into structures we barely see. We accept borders drawn long before we were born. The psychological leap that began with Sargon still defines us. We adapted to abstraction, to hierarchy at scale, to systems larger than any individual. The experiment intensified. Göbekli Tepe forced us to question when civilization began. Sargon forces us to question what civilization becomes, because once cities exist, ambition expands them. And once expansion begins, power seeks permanence. The first empire was not just a political event. It was a transformation of human possibility. It proved that one vision, backed by force, could redraw the world. And once humanity learned that lesson, there was no going back. Civilization didn't just grow upward, it grew outward, and outward growth requires domination. The first empire was the moment humanity stopped asking, "How do we live together?" and started asking, "How far can we control?" That question has echoed for over 4,000 years, and we are still living inside the answer.